In this video, we talk about global strategies for the international or multinational corporation. So what are our objectives when we discuss global strategies for the multinational corporation? Our objectives are twofold. First, to formulate a successful strategy that does what? That exploits overseas business opportunities by either entering into an overseas market, which is called trade, or we enter into a production agreement. We produce overseas, which is called direct investment. So internationalization and technology are the two most important forces to reshape the competitive business environment for the last 50 years. And internationalization occurs through both trade and direct investment. So again, trade is the sale and the shipment of goods and services created in one country and sold to consumers in a second country. Direct investment, on the other hand, is the building or the acquiring of productive assets in a foreign country. So we think there of long-term investment in technology and management skills, physical assets that we will have as a foreign subsidiary, an owned foreign subsidiary. So when we think about globalization, we say the word globalization. What do we really mean? It's the increasing interdependence and homogeneity among countries. And when we think of a global strategy, at the simplest, the very simplest, broken down to the lowest level, a global strategy is treating the world as a single market with standard products, distributed, marketed worldwide. But it's not at this lowest level. It's not at the simplest level. At a more sophisticated level, we think of global strategy as strategy that recognizes and exploits linkages between countries. So we exploit what? Global scale, national resource differences, strategic competition. As well, we look at the driving forces of internationalization. It is that exploitation of market opportunity, therefore sales. What are the markets? How are we going to sell? What is it that we're going to sell in foreign countries? But as well, we look at how can we exploit the resources and capabilities in other countries. So the key words here are market opportunities and resource capabilities. So we think, how do we increase profits? Well, we increase profits when we increase sales. How do we increase sales? We increase sales when we have new markets or we have new products. Pardon me. How do we get new markets or new products? Well, we get them from where do we get the ideas for our new products? From innovation. And where are we getting those innovative ideas? It's by exploiting the physical and human resources in other countries and taking advantage of the lower wages, taking advantage of production techniques, taking advantage of exchange rates, of government incentives, both their government, our government, taking advantage of distribution facilities and the value chain in the other countries. So when we think again of international industry analysis, we can think of a trading industry, or we may call that international. We can think of multi-domestic industry and global industry. So a trading or international industry, what do we think of there? It's where we have significant activities that are outside our home country, but our main focus is still within our own home country when it comes to competitive advantage. So we look at internationalization, that trading industry that comes from primarily through trade being export and import. When do we have a trading environment? When is a trading environment the most beneficial? It's when the product is easily transportable, it's not nationally differentiated, and it does allow for substantial scale economy. So we can think of aircrafts, we can think of ships, we can think of military equipment from those. So that is, again, something that is not nationally differentiated. And frankly, it's easy to move back and forth. When we think multi-domestic, we think of a company operating in many different countries, but still having that clear home base. Our competitive advantage can vary within countries, but we're still having that home base. And those, when is a multi-domestic environment or a multi-domestic model most beneficial? It's when the internationalization occurs primarily through direct investment, not trade, not export, not import, but direct investment, that direct building of those facilities in the foreign country, because the product itself is not easily transportable. So that product is hard to transport as well. That product has a high degree of national differentiation. So it's different between one country and then the next country and the next country and then the next country. It's not a standard product like the products that we could export or import. And so that multi-domestic industry there is for products that are not easily transportable, that do have a high degree of national differentiation. We can think of banking, we can think of hotels, we could think of frozen foods there. Or the third one is global industry. And what do we think of when we think of global industry? Global industry, we can think of treating the whole world as a single market and one source of supply. And so competitive advantage then comes from common brands, it comes from standardized products, it comes from global scale and production with little local variation. However, you still have to do what? You still have to cope with international currencies, you have to cope with international tax laws, international employment laws. You have to negotiate with governments and government agencies. And so that global industry is really a combination of the two, of the trade, which is export, import, for something that is easily transportable, but as well direct investment where you are building facilities in building or buying facilities in the foreign country. And so that combination of trade and direct investment there is what distinguish or differentiate or describe a global industry. And what are some examples there? Some large-scale manufacturing industries such as automobiles, electronics, pharmaceuticals, and alcohol. We also think of competitive advantage and comparative advantage when we are thinking about trade and direct investment. And so when we think of competitive advantage and comparative advantage, we see that competitive advantage in the international arena is like competitive advantage in the national or local arena. And so competitive advantage occurs when a firm matches its internal strengths and resources and capabilities to the key success factors in the industry. However, in an international context, not only do you consider the firm's resources and capabilities, you also have to consider the international environment, industry environment, as greater than the national and international, greater than the national environment. So when we think of comparative advantage, there is the old traditional view of comparative advantage and also the new view. So we're going to look at that older traditional emphasis on comparative advantages when one country has an advantage in the products that make the greatest use of the resources that are in abundance in that country. So we can think of low wage labor. We can think of minerals and other natural resources. We can think of agriculture. So that's the traditional older way, is what is it that is produced cheaply in great abundance, and because it's in great abundance, therefore it's produced cheaply, and take advantage, exploitive advantage, and a lot of that is primary materials. So again, labor being a primary material, minerals being a primary material. The new current way of thinking of comparative advantage, however, is different. That shift there has gone from an exploitation of primary materials to an exploitation of local knowledge. So local knowledge, local technology, local systems, management capabilities, capital markets, communication networks, legal systems there. So the difference is, with a traditional view of comparative advantage, you're basically, in a sense, what you're doing is that you're taking away and you're not giving back. However, the more current version of comparative advantage is that you are able to exploit. However, you have not taken away. It can still be an accretive type of action. Not to say that the traditional emphasis is still not important. So low wages obviously are very important. It's a very huge factor. Raw materials also is a very huge factor, because generally they are not easily or economically transportable until they are refined. But more and more, the advantage focus is on the softer, less primary materials, not that low wage labor, not those minerals, not those natural resources, but on a softer resources and capability, looking at what is the knowledge, that management capability, how can we work with those capital markets, the communication system, the underlying infrastructure, as opposed to taking away just those minerals, resources, and again, that low wage labor, without actually really giving something back to the other country.